Yeah, welcome to
It very
Learn
much
English
depends
with
on the
Fun
culture of the
with
place you are working,
𝗂𝒧𝒏.
doesn't it? And also how it is done. It might be done in a helpful way to make sure that a problem does not get overlooked. Or sometimes you see people doing it in very cynical ways.
Welcome
of just
to this
adding
episode
lots of names into an
Office
email
English series,
which is perhaps
this is the
slightly
second
different.
episode,
And we are discussing about the language
It very
we
much
use.
depends on the
when you
culture
need
of
to
the place
chase you are
people up.
working, doesn't it?
A big thanks
And also
for the
how it is
resounding success
It might
that
be
you
done in a
gave
helpful
for
way
this
to
new
make
series.
sure
And
that your
a
encouragement
problem does
has
not get
propelled us
overlooked.
to extend this
Or
series.
sometimes
you see
our
people
office
doing
series
it in
started
very
with
cynical
episode
ways
23.
of just adding
What
lots of
happens
names into
when
an
you ask
email
someone
which
to
is
do
perhaps
something at work
slightly
and
different.
they don't do it?
It can be really frustrating at work when you are waiting for a reply to get the response. Remember, if you need any help with your English language skills, then be sure to check out with 𝗂𝒧𝒏 by subscribing to our Spotify podcasts or search Learn English with Fun. If you don't have a Spotify account, you can visit www.𝗂𝒧𝒏.com for the complete set of our podcasts, which are categorized as per the discussion. Do note that our podcasts are short and impactful and are posted twice a week.
What happens when you ask someone to do something at work and they have not done it?
I feel okay about it. And I always start really polite. But, obviously, if someone doesn't reply and then you need it and you have to chase them again and again. So, when I have to chase people up at work, I don't mind because generally, it is just something they have forgotten about or they have missed the email. But yeah, it can get a bit awkward if you have to do it over and over again, and you are not sure why.
Today in this Office English episode, we are talking about how to remind people to do something in a polite and a professional way.
Hello. Welcome to Office English from 𝗂𝒧𝒏. I am Mr. Chip.
And I am Govin, and I am the host for this podcast to explore the language that is to be used in the world of work for reminding people.
Today, we are talking about how to remind somebody to do something if they have not responded to you, or how to chase people up at work.
Yep, as we heard at the start of the program, we spent a lot of time and energy at work reminding other people to do things. So, Mr. Chip, what do we mean when we say we need to chase people up at work?
Yeah, so we don't literally mean to chase people. We just mean to go back to them on email or speak to them again to ask them one more time, can you please do this thing? Or can you reply to me? Or send whatever you have asked them to do. So it is basically reminding somebody to do something. We use the phrase chase people up.
Actually, when you are chasing people up, it can be quite important to think about who you are chasing up, because we would probably chase different people in different ways.
Yes, in many countries, especially here in India where we work, people tend to be very polite and friendly when they first chase someone up. Of course, you have then got the problem that they might not respond again. So you might have to send another reminder and then another reminder. So you might change your language each time. And today, we are going to talk about each time you have to remind someone about a task and how you can change your language to convince them to get the job done.
So, we will start by talking about the first time we need to remind someone of something. What phrases can we use, Mr. Chip? Always remember that if you need additional help with your grammar, if you want to understand everything you hear or read and you want to express yourself completely, then check out www.𝗂𝒧𝒏.com, where you can take great online English courses on a range of different topics.
Yes. So, if I was sending an email to someone to chase them up or remind them about a task, I would probably start by saying just wondering if you saw my last email. What do you think about that, Govind?
Oh yeah, this is one that I would definitely use a lot. In culture like ours, where people are not always direct, and this is perhaps an example for this. It might be, I know you have seen the email, I know I sent the email, but just wondering if you had seen my last email, because you are allowing for the possibility that they might not have seen it. Yeah, it is less direct and it is quite friendly. It is quite a nice way just to remind people that is very clear what you want them to do.
And then I might continue by saying, have you had a chance to? And then talk about the task I have asked them to do. So that is asking them quite directly, have you had a chance to look at the report, but I am asking it politely. I am showing I understand that they are busy and I might not be the most important person in their day. But have you had a chance to? Is a good way to remind somebody about a task that you have asked them to do.
And you are accepting the possibility that it might have been difficult for them to do it or difficult to find time. So yeah, in that way you are, I guess, showing more respect to the person that you are emailing.
Yeah. And a final kind of polite, friendly first reminder thing you can do is, you can say something like, if you are able to send it by next week, that would be great. So, there you are giving them a deadline, a clear deadline of when you would like the task completed by. But it is polite still, so you are still giving that impression that you understand their time, and you are almost asking them rather than telling them.
Of course, it can be difficult if someone is chasing you up, depending on who they are. If they send something like that, which seems quite friendly and quite vague. If they are an important person, if it is a really important task, they might be using, if you are able to, that would be great. But they actually mean, do it by then or else.
Yes, that is the problem with this friendly, polite way of working that we have in our culture. Sometimes it is difficult to know. Okay, so let us imagine that we have sent that first reminder. We have sent an email off politely, reminding somebody to do something, but we still have not had a response. What do we do next, Govind? How could we change our language slightly?
Okay, well, here is one. You could say, I wanted to remind you about, and then you had to explain the thing that you are chasing about underneath.
Yeah, I like that. So that is a bit firmer. It is more direct. This time we are not asking somebody, have you had a chance to? We are saying I wanted to remind you about. So, it is a statement rather than a question. We are not asking, we are telling somebody to do something this time.
But it is interesting because we still have wanted. We have got it in the past there, which kind of makes it a bit more distant. There is still a little bit of politeness there, but it is a lot firmer than the ones we looked at before.
Yeah, it is definitely politer than saying, do this or else, as we said. What is the next phrase, Govind?
So, please could you finish this by the end of tomorrow or whatever time?
Yes, that is nice. So, it is still a request. We are still not telling them rudely to do something, but we are being very clear now about the deadline. Please could you do this by this time tomorrow, then you clearly say that is what needs to happen.
Yeah, there is not really any space there for us for something different to happen, is there? It is very clear what needs to be done and when. And the next one is otherwise. And of course, you would use that to introduce the consequences of something not happening. This is where it starts to get quite serious, I think, at this point, isn't it?
Yeah. It might sometimes be right to explain what is going to happen if they do not do the thing. We do not really want to threaten somebody at this point, depending on how serious it is that they have not responded, but it might be good to explain the urgency. So we could say otherwise. We might lose this client. So we are reminding somebody of what might happen if they don't do what we have asked them to do. That is just another way to kind of make it seem more serious and more direct, rather than our language we had in our first email that was very friendly, really just asking, oh, would you mind if you have the time, please could you help me with this important thing?
Right, Mr. Chip. We have tried all those options and we still have not heard back. Are there any other phrases we could try?
Well, this is where it starts to get difficult. So we could just try a different way of communicating with them. So we could pick up the phone. We don't do that very often these days at work, or we certainly don't do that much in our day-to-day work. But phoning someone, or mentioning it at a meeting, going to their desk in the office to say, I don't know if you have seen my emails, but I would really like your report by tomorrow. You can then follow up with them on an email. That means just send an email to say I just spoke to you about this. And then another thing we could do is, we could consider escalating the problem. Now, escalating is sort of a business term we use to say we are going to involve someone more senior. So you might copy in on an email a manager. That means you send the email also to your manager or their manager. That will really depend on your workplace, what the request is, what the consequences are of them not having done the thing. But it could be useful. If they are not responding to you, maybe they will respond to your boss.
Yeah. It very much depends on the culture of the place you are working, doesn't it? And also how it is done. It might be done in a helpful way to make sure that a problem does not get overlooked. Or sometimes you see people doing it in very cynical ways of just adding lots of names into an email, which is perhaps slightly different.
And then the final thing we can do is be clear about when our final email is. Okay? When our final reminder is. So, I might send an email saying something like, this is a final reminder about. Or I might use the phrase, this is your last chance to contribute to the report. What do you think about that, Govind?
Yeah, again, it is very good because it is very clear. So, it is just a way to make sure everyone knows they know the urgency of the situation. They perhaps know possible consequences.
Yeah. And we should say that in some workplace cultures, you would probably be that direct in your first reminder. So some places don't have this strange situation, where we have to pretend that we didn't send an email and remind someone, did you see my email? And all these questions. But certainly in the Western countries, there is this kind of culture of politeness and informality that means we don't send someone the final reminder straight away if they have not done something.
Okay, so when I have to chase people up at work, I don't mind because, Generally, it is just something they have forgotten about, or they have missed the email. But it can get a bit awkward if you have to do it over and over again, and you are not sure why. Sometimes, it is more difficult to chase somebody up with whom you work with on a regular basis. It is a bit difficult with that difference between being friendly and being businessy because you actually need something.
So, Govind. Anita was talking there about the balance between being friendly and being businessy or professional. What do you think about that when it comes to chasing people up?
It does make it harder, doesn't it? It means you cannot. It is a lot harder to break out the final reminder language or to use that.
But, yeah, that is why I think, in general, we have talked a lot in this series about having the balance between being friendly and polite and professional. So you always want to be friendly and polite, but you also want to stay professional at work.
It is certainly very frustrating when people don't get back to you, especially when you need their response to get on with your work. But hopefully, the phrases we have discussed today will help you remain professional when you chase your colleagues or clients.
That is it for this episode of Office English. Remember, you can find courses and activities to help with your English at work on our website, www.sahasriya.com.
Next time, we are talking about phone calls, instant messages, and video calls, and the language we need to communicate well at work.
Until then, bye.
Bye, Mr. Chip. Listeners, stay tuned for the interesting and the fun fact section for this episode. Do you have anything interesting to share for our listeners today?
If a child's circulatory system is laid out flat, we are talking about veins, arteries, and capillaries. It would stretch out for more than 60,000 miles. Yes, 96,000 kilometers. By the time we reach adulthood, our bodies become home to approximately 100,000 miles or 160,000 kilometers of blood vessels.
No wonder human beings are often very complicated. One more for our listeners, please.
Many Walt Disney fans say that their 1937 movie, titled Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, holds the honor of first animated feature film. But probably they are not aware that 20 years earlier to that, in 1917, a full-length animated feature film was made in Argentina, called El Apóstol. It was made with 58,000 drawings and ran for close to 70 minutes. That would be a whopping 830 drawings per minute.
Wow, that was indeed a very interesting fact. Thanks a lot. I hope you have enjoyed learning through yet another episode, and this time the theme was about office English and the language to use for chasing up people, either over emails or in person or over phone. Remember that if you need help with your English, you should do two things. One, follow us on Learn English with Fun podcast. We are present in many platforms including Spotify, Amazon Music, Google, YouTube, Castbox, and many more. Two, check out www.sahasriya.com. We have lots of great online English courses including IELTS PTE courses. My name is Govind and I will see you soon. Stay safe.